Empty stares, rigid and artificial movements that send shivers down your spine. The feeling that something is wrong. Very wrong. With that almost human-like form in front of your eyes. You feel a bit uncomfortable at best, and absolutely frightened at worst. Even though we're in an era where technology and artificial intelligence seem to surpass us by leaps and bounds, coexisting with us in our daily lives, within us, something more instinctual automatically kicks in. That's why, when robotic replicas look too much like us, move and behave like us, it just freaks us out. Freaks us out might not even cut it. The truth is, the sight of a humanoid can be disturbing, unsettling, and scary, all at the same time. But why does this happen? Stick with us, and we will try to explain it to you. The fear is what's known as the Uncanny Valley, a theory coined back in 1970 by robotics expert Masahiro Mori. In Japanese, they call it Bukimi no Tani Gensho. In a nutshell, Mori explained that robots are cute when they share human-like qualities, but when they get too close to looking and acting like us, it starts to creep us out. For a visual representation, let's stick with the graph from the study. According to this idea, as a robot becomes more like a person, we start to feel more familiar and empathetic towards it. But if it gets too human-like, any little flaw or weird detail stands out more, making us feel uneasy and repelled. Mori called this phenomenon the valley because of the sharp drop in empathy towards a robot. As you can see in this graph, the uncanny valley is the lowest point, where both lines go down. Once something gets too close to looking like a regular human, beyond a certain point of familiarity or empathy, it triggers feelings of fear, disgust, or just plain weirdness. As time went on, Mori's theory expanded to include any figure that looks human-like, whether it's real or virtual. So, the Uncanny Valley explores how uncomfortable and creeped out we feel towards these kinds of representations. Actually, we've seen this recently with movies like Sonic, where the fans pretty much forced the studio, rightfully so, to change the hedgehog's terrible design to make it look less real and more like a cartoon. There's also the recent case of Cats and many other films like The Polar Express that fall into the Uncanny Valley. In fact, it applies to CGI effects used on real actors too. Remember the first scene of Joss Whedon's Justice League movie? The bad CGI made even Henry Cavill look weird. It's uncomfortable to watch, not just because of the bad story, but because we can tell something's not right with the actor's face. We think the Uncanny Valley shows this. When we see something we know isn't human, we focus on its human-like qualities. When Masahiro Mori introduced his theory, he drew upon his own experiences to share the idea he had regarding the phenomenon that many people might be experiencing. Clearly, his assumptions struck a chord in different places, providing a reason to seek an explanation from a scientific perspective about what lies behind this unsettling sensation. This isn't an absolute explanation that determines the reason why the Uncanny Valley happens, but there are some theories about it. One idea is that the brain gets thrown off by the blurry line between something being human-like and not quite human. The brain's stimulus evaluation system is wired to prevent us from selecting mates with health problems, thus causing us to reject any signs that might indicate a person is unsuitable for reproduction or poses a danger to our preservation. Talia Wheatley, a psychologist at Dartmouth College, has found in her research that our evolutionary past has trained us to notice even the smallest abnormalities, like a built-in detector for diseases or physical and mental problems. So, feeling uneasy in the Uncanny Valley might just be our natural defense mechanism against sickness and death, meant to keep the species going. The more something looks like us, the more likely it is to carry diseases caused by bacteria or viruses, which might ramp up our rejection response. So, when we see glitches in an android, it's like our brains are associating them with seriously ill or dead people, triggering a feeling of disgust. And not only that, But the face is a crucial element when it comes to socializing, because through it, we can read the intentions of the people around us. Have you ever seen someone smile and thought, "That's a fake smile"? This makes these robotic faces, which are currently unable to faithfully replicate the complexity of human expressions, disturbing. Perhaps it's because our brains associate that empty, lifeless gaze with some illness, or simply because we're unable to decipher the intentions of these robots through their faces. We still don't fully understand why it happens, or whether we can ever get used to it, and people aren't necessarily in agreement that it even exists. But maybe what makes us feel uneasy is just a kind of mental clash. When you make something look almost human, it sets up certain expectations in the brain about how it should act, like moving or making facial expressions. When those expectations aren't met completely, it messes with our heads. One of the robots that really creeped people out was Geminoid HI4, a super realistic copy of engineer Hiroshi Ishiguro. He's spent a lot of his life trying to make robots seem more human, even making a robot that looks just like him. But that's not the usual deal, because most robots we know are just industrial legs and arms. Generally speaking, Asian countries are more open to the possibility of having robots that are almost indistinguishable from humans than Western countries. Although even in China or Japan, there's a push for a clearly robotic type of humanoid. Android or gynoid, depending on gender. In Asia, there are a couple of humanoid robots that are on a spectrum of human likeness. For example, in China, the Smart Field Hospital in Wuhan used humanoid robots donated by Cloud9's technology to clean, take temperatures, deliver food and medicine, and even entertain medical staff and patients. Another famous one is Sophia, a social robot made by Hanson Robotics in Hong Kong. She can move, talk, show emotions, draw, and sing. But in the West, even though they make humanoid robots too, they tend to look more obviously like robots. Maybe it's because of cultural differences in how we see technology and human-robot interactions. Ever wondered why some famous robots are more likable than others? Think about R2-D2 and C-3PO from Star Wars, or Sophia, the robot made by Hanson Robotics. Which one do you find friendlier and more empathetic? Well, these three robots all have one thing in common. You can still see metal parts on them, and they don't move very smoothly. Mori noticed that Greek and Roman statues don't make us feel as weird as human-like robots do because statues don't move. The feeling of unease becomes stronger when the robot is moving, or when it's in a video. But can the uncanny valley be avoided? Some researchers point to the work of companies like Disney and Blizzard in movies and video games. Disney cartoons its characters, steering clear of the uncanny valley. Blizzard aims for detailed designs without getting too realistic. But avoidance is not always the answer, is it? Could we get through this? The thing is, when we see these almost human but not quite perfect representations, it brings about a kind of philosophical unease. What if we are soulless machines too? Maybe, in the end, the uncanny valley reminds us of how complex we humans are. It's like a distorted mirror reflecting ourselves, making us wonder what's normal or okay. It's a warning that sometimes what's most terrifying is what gets too close to what we know. What do you think is acceptable designing humanoids? And what isn't? Please leave a comment and subscribe to the Artificial Intel channel for more. Until next time.